Welcome to Conversations from St. Norbert College, a program that invites you into discussions taking place in your community on today's local and global issues. Now, your host for Conversations from St. Norbert College, the Dean and Academic Vice President of the college, Michael Marsden.
Good evening, my name is Michael Marsden, and I'm your host for this edition of Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our special guests this evening are Mr. Dan Robinson and Dr. Linda Beane-Katner. Dan is in his 7th year at St. Norbert College and now serves as director of the newly established Center for Community Service and Learning. Prior to this new position, Dan has worked in the social justice ministry, community organizing, and various parish ministries. Along with his duties at the Center for Community Service and Learning, Dan serves as the coordinator of music ministry for St. Norbert College as well as for St. Norbert Parish. Dr. Linda Beane-Katner is director of the Faculty Development Office on campus and also associate professor of French. She coordinates the academic service learning for the new Center for Community Service and Learning. Linda received her doctorate in French literature from the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. She joined the St. Norbert College community about 16 years ago. Our topic this evening is the newly established Center for Community Service and Learning at St. Norbert College. Dan and Linda, welcome to our program. We're really pleased to have both of you with us.
Thank you.
People create centers to solve problems, that otherwise can't be addressed. So what were the problems that were facing the college community that led to the establishment of a new Center for Community Service and Learning? What caused you to come to this point?
Well, I think that it's a combination of things. Some are problems, but some are opportunities.
Okay.
I think some of the issues that the college faces in terms of a community service is how can we do best to get our students out into the wider community, making a difference in what is happening for people that are struggling, that are hurting on issues of social justice. We've done a great job of getting our students out for one-shot opportunities, like Into the Streets, which is an annual thing in the fall for freshmen.
That's one day.
It's a one-day thing. Right. Make a Difference Day is another one we do a good job with. We've had service opportunities around Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the past. But those have been short-term things, and we want to be able to expose our students to more sustained efforts of how do you really make an impact in the community, because not only does that better the community, but it also helps our students learn a little bit more in depth from relationships that they build with the people that they're serving, with the people that they're working with. There's a lot of good folks in this community that are doing some great things. Right. And we want our students to be exposed to that. So I think problems may be a strong word. I think it's more some issues that we faced in not having that kind of sustained relationship.
Well, what about the possibility of making this a lifelong vocation for the students?
Oh, sure. I myself am an example of that. I mean, I had some opportunities for service when I was in college, during spring break opportunities and during summers, that just really steered the direction of my life. And I see that a lot with the students that we've worked with. And in fact, one of the things that we're initiating with the center right now is trying to get students organized to go to a post-grad volunteer fair down in Milwaukee at Marquette University, where a lot of organizations are going to be there, giving them opportunities to do a year of service after graduation.
After graduation,
that's so we're both in terms of what we do at the college and while they're here, but also, again, trying to expose them to a lifelong view of service.
Well, Linda, what's the challenge from an academic point of view that you think the center can help with?
Well, we've had some professors engaged in academic service learning over the past years, but we haven't had infrastructure to support their efforts and adequate resources also to help them enhance what they're doing. And so we're hoping to support existing efforts and then educate faculty who are interested in offering academic service learning courses and then expand those efforts in the curriculum.
Can you give a couple of examples of that? And I will also ask Dan to do the same, but a couple of specific examples of how the academic programs interface with service learning? Or
certainly. Any academic course could have a service learning component, because what the service learning component is doing is applying whatever theory is being learned in the class. And so we have seen some academic service learning across the curriculum, and we hope to expand those efforts.
Dan, your case?
Well, we've had a great example of that in the past here at St. Norbert College. A number of years ago, Karina O'Malley, who was a professor here in sociology, she and a group of students started Crossroads homeless shelter in the Brown County area. And that had a great impact on the community, both in terms of service to the people that came there, but also raising the issue of homelessness. If you look at what's happening right now in the community in terms of serving people who are experiencing homelessness, You can trace a lot of that back to the efforts that were started by Karina and a group of students. It was a perfect academic service learning experience that really established a great.
And it's still a
here.
major issue in the community.
It is. It is a major issue, and St. Norbert has had a role in supporting what's been happening at St. John's, the shelter that's servicing people there as a seasonal homeless shelters, and also being a part of the conversation about how we address homelessness in general. But again, a lot of that can be traced back to what happened in the classroom here at the college.
And it hasn't one of the problems or challenges been that we need more sustained efforts in the community, not just the occasional jumping into a problem and then walking away from it, but rather sustained efforts over the long haul. And we hope through the academic enterprise to get more intellectual firepower at play here to make sure we can get some long-term solutions. I assume that's part of the problem, part of the challenge anyway.
Sure, and those long-term efforts also have benefits for the community agencies, because it becomes a burden if there's too many short-term disconnected opportunities. Then if we have more of a sustained partnership, then we can really serve their needs.
That's very good. The new division, the new center rather, cuts across 3 academic divisions, well, not the college divisions, mission and heritage, academic affairs, and student life. How do you envision all of this working itself out over time, since you've got 3 divisions coming together? This is kind of unique, I think, in the institution.
Sure.
What do you think some of the challenges are, and what are some of the solutions to that over the long haul, from both of your points of view?
Sure. Well, I think that I think some of the challenges for that are some of the challenges in any new organization you're starting, especially one that is trying to involve a lot of working from different parts of the organization. I think communication is a huge piece of that. One of the things that we really want to emphasize in how the center operates, both in terms of here at the college, but also in the wider community, is a sense of collaboration and equality and partnership. So when you talk about the divisions here at the college, those are the same principles that we want to use in how the center interacts with folks in the wider community. That is that we're not coming at this with a set of answers that we know that you're going to need, and so we give you what you need, and we don't need anything from you. I think it's a sense of humility and equality that we engage the wider community, and I think that works the same way in how we interact with the divisions. Mission and Heritage, the division I come out of, brings something to the conversation, but so does obviously academic affairs and student affairs. Right. And we have to listen to each other, communicate, take the time to collaborate as time goes by. Sometimes that's not the most efficient way of operating in terms of, you can tick off 5 or 6 things that are done this week, but over the long haul it builds a really good base.
But isn't it also, Linda, a way to break down barriers between the divisions?
Oh, absolutely, because we're looking to holistically educate our students across the curriculum and across the spectrum in the classroom and out of the classroom, so we can model that collaborative approach to the whole student.
The center should be the model for that behavior ultimately.
Mm-hmm.
Now there are 3 major components there. There's teaching, research, and service within a faculty member's life. And if you look at these, there's 3 circles. There's a little spot in the middle where they all come together. And do you see that as the major opportunity for faculty research into community service? Is that the major point?
Certainly. Where that intersects then we call community-based research or action-based research. And so then that's a possibility for the faculty member to draw together the 3 facets of their lives and apply that to solving community needs and giving the students that opportunity to address those issues.
Let's talk about that for a minute. You used the example of homelessness in Brown County in particular. How does that all work? Let's take homelessness as a case study. Mm-hmm. Can we talk a little bit about what might be an academic involvement there, as well as a student life involvement, as well as a mission and heritage involvement? How do you see the 3 divisions contributing to the solution? I mean, part of the problem with the homeless shelter in Green Bay is that nobody wants it in their backyard, and so they keep at least attempting to move it to someplace else. How do you see the 3 units coming together to help solve that problem, just very specifically?
Well, I think you bring up a really good point in that it's sort of everybody, or I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people support working with people who are homeless and providing services and helping them move on to a better situation in their life. But the difficulty becomes, where do you do that? And I think when those discussions are happening, there's a lot of information that's thrown around that's saying, well, they're having this effect on the neighborhood or this effect on the community, but people aren't necessarily speaking from hard facts when they talk about that. And I think one of the contributions that a student classroom experience could offer is the time and opportunity for somebody to say, all right, well, if this is the claims that are being made about the impact on this community, let's research it. Are police calls really up in the area? Or are they down? Or are they the same? Does it really have an effect on the school? Like, for example, how school A lot of people assume because it's so close to the shelter that they would be against the shelter. But actually they weren't. They were for it because a lot of the people that were sleeping outside were doing so near the school. This gave them a place to go. So I think that a research, so that students could do community-based research, as Linda had said, can help establish what really the facts are surrounding a given situation.
I assume, Linda, that from an academic point of view, too, that one of the things that the faculty could do was to work towards more long-term solutions, since the homeless shelter is really a 24-hour fix to a problem, particularly in the winter. What do you think might be some examples of projects that a faculty member could engage in that might actually address that issue?
With the homeless?
Yes.
Well, we could do, as Dan was mentioning, actually looking at the long-term costs that are associated. And costs aren't just financial, but costs are also social.
Indeed.
And so we could take an interdisciplinary approach and perhaps have different classes working on these different facets of providing where we are now and a clear, accurate snapshot of where we are now, and then perhaps recommending where to go to find systemic solutions to this problem.
Because I think, indeed, if we had economists and political scientists and sociologists working on this and trying to come up with some long-term solutions, because from my vantage point, at least for what it's worth, is I'm not so sure that a lot of communities really want to solve the problem, because it's a huge cost to them to really, really solve the problem.
Well, and I think one of the pieces, you mentioned the different divisions of the college, I think one of the pieces that St. Norbert can uniquely bring as an institution to this kind of conversation is a religious Christian Catholic perspective. And, Mission and Heritage sort of carries that banner, but I think all the divisions of the college carry that banner as well. And that is, we can assess the cost, but what is the cost to us as a community in terms of our spirit, in terms of who we say we are? Trying to put that in a context of how we understand ourselves and our responsibilities as a community to respond to brothers and sisters who are hurting. And I think that that's a really important piece in terms of reflecting on the situation that St. Norbert can bring.
I want to talk a little bit about the fact that this, of course, grows out of the Norbertine values, and particularly the value of radical hospitality, trying to make sure that we are hospitable and that we reach out to the people in need. Having said that, how do you see the center actually serving a larger area, since you're really focusing on Brown County, if I read the information correctly, rather than the region? It's just really Brown County. How does that work? I mean, why wouldn't you take a larger region if your purpose is to reach out?
The Norbertine principle of stability is then to serve the needs of the local population as they are defined. And so Norbertines take a vow of stability to the Abbey and then serve the local needs. So we want to reflect that in our center and concentrate then on Brown County as, in essence, our locality. I
want to remind our viewers that you're watching Conversations from St. Norbert College. Our special guests this evening are Dan Robinson and Linda Beane-Katner. And our topic is the new center at St. Norbert College dedicated to community service and learning. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the fact that as you model this, and your focus I know is on Brown County, as you've said, but as you model this new center, do you see this as becoming a kind of standard for other people to take a look at, maybe model it themselves after? Do you see this as kind of setting a new standard for community service and learning in the country?
It is, in essence, an innovative model, and we have found a few other centers nationwide that are moving to this integrated approach, co-curricular and academic. And so we're very excited then to advance to that stage. And if it so happens that others eventually look to us for excellence in this model, I think we'd be pleased.
Well, I raise it because, of course, our Office for Faculty Development is a national model, for how to do faculty development very well. So, assuming that, both of you with your expertise are involved in this, I can only assume that you'll try to model this thing so it'll become a national model.
Well, certainly, I think that, as Linda said, if people look to us to what we've done here, great. I think that's a lot of work that we have to do between now and then to make that happen. I think our goal is primarily, though, to do a good job, to strive to do the best that we can do in this situation. And I think there are pieces from that might be applicable to the situations. If they are, great.
Can you, if you look down the road 5 or 10 years from now, and take a look back at the center and the things that you would hope to have accomplished, what would be some of the indicators of success 5 or 10 years from now? If things are going to work the way you think they ought to work, What are some of the examples of success that you would be able to point to?
Well, on the academic side, which I could speak to, we would hope to expand academic service learning in the curriculum. And we've spoken about perhaps having designating academic service learning courses and then perhaps having a certificate that students could work towards being involved in such initiatives. So it's an expansion of the number of courses available. It's an expansion of the number of faculty involved, which then expands the number of students involved.
And that would be easily so the certificate would go on the transcript. And so that would be something you could point to and say if 30 students went through the certificate program, and that would be a very concrete example. From your point of view, Dan?
Well, I think from my perspective, one of the most important pieces of this is how St. Norbert is engaged in the wider community and works for the common good, for social justice. And so 5 years from now, I would hope that when folks are sitting down around a table and say, all right, who do we want to gather to work on X problem, whether it's homelessness or whether it's child nutrition or environmental concerns, that they say, well, you know, one of the people we need to have around this table is St. Norbert College because they have a history, they have experience with getting engaged in community issues and solving community problems. If that happens, then I'll feel like, yeah, we're headed in the right direction.
What are some of the challenges you think, Linda, from an academic point of view? I mean, traditionally academics have not really been involved in the solution of community issues. That's not been the tradition. But this is a new model. So what do you think some of the challenges are going to be for you and others who have to convince your colleagues that this is really a legitimate area for research, a legitimate area for academic activity? Academia
is moving in this direction, so it's easy, or we don't have to persuade the newer faculty. They've participated in this, and they're very excited, more open, more in tuned. It's a question of changing culture for faculty who've been here longer. And we can do that with the enthusiasm. Well, you can do that partly by modeling with the enthusiasm of the younger faculty. And as we grow slowly, which we hope to be intentional about our growth, we can see that the benefits that are accruing to faculty and students who are participating, which hopefully will create enthusiasm and others will want to become involved.
Do you see the need to sort of make the argument for including this in tenure and promotion decisions?
Absolutely. We have to make that clear that the research you're doing, if it's community-based, counts as well as the other scholarly research that you're doing.
Is it also an opportunity from your point of view, Linda, to include the students in the sense of undergraduate research, working with the faculty on these community-based projects? Is that a good possibility?
It's an excellent possibility, and we're increasingly emphasizing undergraduate research at the college, and so I see a dotted line between academic service learning, community-based learning, and then undergraduate research.
So you're very hopeful about that.
Very hopeful.
Good at that point.
It's all moving in the same direction.
So where do you see the challenges then in terms of convincing people that this is where we ought to be putting our time, money, and energy? Dan?
Well, I think part of it is, what does this have to do with me? I mean, I think students, and rightly so, they come to college and they say, I'm here, I'm spending this money, I'm investing my time and energy in this, and I'm getting an education. So I think we have to help people understand, students, faculty, staff, understand that this is an essential piece of who we are as an institution, and that this has a real impact on the development of our students. Again, I go back I think we all do, is go back to my own story, and I think about the way I looked at life and the way I looked at the world when I started college, and how different that was and how much better it was for the long haul.
Let's talk about that in more detail. What's different?
Well, when I was in college, I started out in agriculture, and I was studying agriculture.
Really?
Yep, I did. I grew up in a farming community, and I started out as an ag major. And my freshman year, I went on a service trip to Pennsylvania, Appalachian Mountains in western Pennsylvania. We worked with a Catholic mission, if you will. It was a community of people that lived in the hills there in the strip mining coal area. Mm-hmm. And we worked with families in the area, helping them with home repairs and cleaning and home visits to a nursing home, all kinds of different things. But it wasn't just that we did these things. We did this in a Catholic and a religious community. And we experienced prayer and community and support with each other. And I thought it was such a great experience. I went back for a summer, and I worked with high school kids who came in the summertime to do the same thing. And then I went back again another spring break. My whole perspective on the world changed 180 degrees from that experience, in that I saw how much, one, we can make a difference in the lives of other people, two, how much I learned from that experience and how much it helped me grow as an individual, and three, how much that made sense to me in my picture of the wider world. Suddenly things that I was confused about, not that confusion never came after that. But things that I was wondering about and not sure about, I'm like, okay, now I have a context to put this in, a faith perspective. And I tell this to people all the time, outside of my own family life with my wife and my kids, that had the biggest impact on who I am today as anything I've ever experienced. And to see that happening, I mean, it happens right now. One of the strengths of the service experience here at St. Norbert College are our TRIPS programs, where students will go away for a week at a time at spring break or Christmas break or whatever, and do the same kinds of things that I did. And I hear the stories when they come back of what that did in their lives and how they look at the world differently. And I think if we can duplicate that kind of experience, either bigger or smaller, in some form or fashion in other service experiences, then we're doing our job.
Yeah, and I think your argument, too, about keeping it local makes a lot of sense, because one of the problems with going off someplace else and doing it for a weekend or a week or a month is that you don't stay there. You know,
That's right.
You're not permanently there, but you're permanently here. And so going back to the argument that we take the Norbert value of stability and employ that in our work and so on.
What that allows, I think what that does is it helps relationship building, and that's the thing that is going to make the real difference for our students, is relationship building with folks.
What about your deep interest in this? Where does it spring from?
Well, we're called to serve our fellow brothers and sisters in need, and so for me it's the synergy between the teaching, the service, and the research, where engaging our students, educating the whole student, using this engaged pedagogy then to increase their education plus then serve that need. It's a win for everybody involved.
Yeah, it seems like a rich mixture of elements that should have come together a long time ago, but obviously just weren't brought together. I wonder, Dan, if you just share with us a little bit about your project that you've worked on for 2 years that's now becoming a reality in Green Bay, because I think the viewers would like to know a little bit about that. I think it's quite a story.
Well, the NovaTeen volunteer community, we're just kicking that off right now. How that started was a couple years ago, Father Jay Foster, Vice President for Mission and Heritage here at the college, and I were talking about what does it mean to commit in the sense of the Norbert charism to this local community, and how can the college sort of embody that? And he and I tossed around some different ideas, and finally the order agreed to hire me for a while to work on a project to say how can we do a better job as an order reaching out to this local community. A lot of great things are happening in their order right now, but they wanted to add to that effort. And so I spent some time working with folks here at the college and with the wider community saying what are some of the needs and how can the Norbertine order address those needs. And what evolved out of those conversations was an idea of the Norbertine volunteer community. And what that is it's a new program where students who have graduated from college can spend a year of service here in the Brown County area. They would be living in community and trying to, in their own small way, model a Norbertine spirituality of prayer and service. And this would be something similar to, the viewers may be more familiar with, say, a Jesuit Volunteer Corps, or with the VISTA program, AmeriCorps program here in the United States. And so it's the Norbertine version of that, if you will. And we've hired Ellen Momartz, who's the director of that, and she's starting to put that together, and we're getting the word out about that both here on campus and in volunteer fairs like the one at Marquette. We're really excited about this. We think that really couples well with the kind of service emphasis we're trying to put on through the center, both at the undergraduate level and after.
So you see a connection with the center?
Almost certainly. I would love to see down the road, some of the things that we are doing at the college connect with the efforts that the Norbertine volunteer community are doing in Green Bay.
And we're also considering or planning on reaching out to alumni, so it'll become the lifelong learning and service.
Right. And I was going to raise that because I think that's an important point. Once ran across a woman in Northwest Ohio who said that she defined services, and she was getting an award for service. And she said that she felt that service, she was surprised that she got the award, and she said that she thought that service was the rent you pay for the space you occupy. And I thought that was a nice way of putting it, in terms of, but isn't our long-term goal to see service as a lifelong vocation for everybody who's connected to the college? And isn't that what we're really after when you come right down to it? And something that we want all of our students, but also our faculty and staff, to become involved with the community. So how do you reach out more directly, Linda and Dan, to the faculty and staff, not just in terms of the classroom and co-curricular, but beyond that?
Do you want to talk about the initiative from Martin Luther King?
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I mean, the college has said, we need, as a group of faculty and staff, to commit more to what we're seeing happening in the wider community. And Martin Luther King Jr. Day seemed like a great time to do that. So there's conversations going on right now at the college about how do we get our faculty and staff out into the community on that day doing service work. And so the college has agreed to allow there to be release time so that it's part of their job for that day to go out and do this. So, I think that's just one example of the college
which
being able
Reverend
to do
King
that.
would really approve of.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So it'll be an initial effort, and we hope to support that and have it grow in the future.
Oh, that's pretty exciting, and I hope it does work well. Other ideas that you have for getting faculty and staff engaged on a regular basis?
Well, it's providing the support and the education and resources in order to encourage them to come use the center, and then.
Have you, as directors of the center, have you thought about the fact that one of the things I suspect for students is that the whole process of dealing with something like homelessness, but there are other issues as well, be quite discouraging. They need to be bolstered up, that they see it repeated day after day after day, and there doesn't seem to be any hope in sight. How do you instill hope in the process that we can change that?
Well, I think you have to help them develop tools that will sustain them over the long haul, and those are life skills not just for dealing with problems like that, but for dealing with issues of personal problems or societal problems in all kinds of contexts. I'm privileged to be a part of a group looking at homelessness here in the community, and a lot of the folks around that table are service providers, and I am constantly amazed at the energy and the commitment they're able to give to that over the long haul. And you have to sit back and ask yourself, well, how do they do that? Yeah, where does that come from?
Where's the energy?
And while I've never asked that question of them directly, I suspect in things that they have said and the other places I've seen them and talked to them, that part of that is, at least for some, a religious commitment, that they see their faith sustaining them through hard times, and to realize that whether or not they see direct results from what they've done, that in this wider scheme of things, God is at work here, and that we are part of a bigger effort than we can ever realize, and that spirit sustains us knowing that. So that's one piece of it. Right. I think another piece of it is exposing our students to success stories. I mean, things do happen. I mean, it may seem like a drop in a bucket at times, but things really do happen. I've been part of an email chain around a person who has recently moved on from St. John's homeless shelter this past winter into a place of residence, and folks are trying to gather stuff for her to outfit her apartment. And she's just one success story out of many that came out of the shelter, and that's just one effort in the wider effort here in the community. So I think helping students be aware that things do happen, that you can make a difference, and here's some examples.
Yeah, exactly. I happened to be attending an award ceremony that was put on by the Brown County Mediation Center the other night, and the recipient of the award was given the award for all of her community service, which the list was endless, and it was an impressive list. And I thought her comment was really telling, because when she spoke after she received the award, she said, I've spent my whole life volunteering and so on, and she said, at some points in my life I've really given far too much of my time and effort, and so on, and that finally I've struck a balance. And I thought that was interesting that she came to an understanding that you have to have balance in your life. So I assume one of the academic values that we will try to promote is balance.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and we'll weave it into the curriculum as well as elsewhere. But I would assume, Linda, that to go back to Dan's point, that general education courses are the ones that are going to best prepare the students to deal with the disappointments and the disillusionment and the challenges and the fatigue, as well as being able to see some hope.
Certainly, that's falls under preparation. We need to prepare our students for this activity, which, as Dan says, is a lifelong skill. Yeah. And so we talk about cultural competencies and some of the social and economic difficulties that they're going to be facing, and ways then that they can better understand that.
And it really puts diversity in a whole new context. Yes. Because it's certainly ethnic diversity, but it's also economic diversity, geographic diversity. It's all of those elements that create that full sense that you said earlier, educating the whole person. So I think that's really what we're after. So I'd like to thank our special guests, Mr. Dan Robinson and Dr. Linda Beane-Katner, for sharing their expertise with us this evening. Please join us for future programs as we continue to explore the world of ideas. Until then, I'm Michael Marsden for Conversations from St. Norbert College.